Hey guys, Aaron here with another fountain pen review today. And I know in our last review I talked about I was going to have a surprise pen today. And I do have a pen. And you may be looking at these three pens and say, well, I've already seen these two, but this one's a little bit different. And you're right. Now, you're probably also thinking to yourself, well, that's basically the same pen, just a different color. And again, you would be mostly right. So I wanted to review this pen right here, the blue one on top. I just got it in the mail this past Saturday, so about 6 days ago as I'm recording this video. And I've been using it for the last few days as kind of a workhorse pen. I'm using it with daily writing, and I've quite enjoyed this pen. Now you look at these three pens, and especially these two, and you say, well, they're basically the same pen. But there's one thing that it makes this pen different than both of these other ones. Yes, it is a Fountain Pen Revolution pen. Yes, it is a Himalaya. Now, I'm going to show you guys kind of the pen itself and kind of go over the color. I'm a big fan of blue, so I actually really like this color. One thing that's a little bit different is you'll notice that the barrel, the end of the barrel there, has a rounded, almost pointed end. And comparing to this one, while this one does have somewhat of a rounded end, the other one definitely has more of a point to it. So that was just one thing I noticed is a little bit different. You'll see kind of that coloring. You'll see some chatoyancy with the acrylic on this pen. And then you'll work your way up the barrel. Same cap band as you have on your orange acrylic one here. Again, same clip that we have on the other two pens as well. Same material on the cap. And then moving up to the cap finial, you'll notice you've got your separate piece here to keep your clip together that just screws on. So really the pen itself is pretty much all the same. Now, taking off the cap, it's going to be basically the same as before. It's about almost 2 full turns, about 1 3/4 turns. Reveals that section. And section is really nice. Really like this section. Again, same material as the rest of the pen, so you don't have a different type of section. The barrel threads are not sharp at all. But here, I'm getting ready to show you, is the difference on this pen. You flip it over. You notice something different about the nib. And that is because this is a gold nib. This is a 14 karat gold flex nib. So if any of you are part of FPR's newsletters, you may have seen through your email, or if you've gone to the website, you may have seen that they are now offering gold nibs. And you can purchase the nibs with the pens, of course, or you can purchase just the nib units separately. I think when I looked on there, they do have a screw-in nib unit. Kevin has them on there, and the 5.5 inch nib option, or I'm sorry, 5.5, and the number 6 nib option, if I'm not mistaken. The nib units retail around $99. Those prices are different based off the different sizes that you get. You can obviously get them with the ebonite feed as well. So if you've already got a Himalaya fountain pen and you want to upgrade the nib, for instance, this could be an option for you if you don't want to buy an entire pen. Now, I made the decision to buy an entire pen because I really wanted to take a look at this blue. This retails, so with the nib upgrade, because it's $99 with the upgrade, it made this pen $128, so $128 for the price. Now, I to be transparent, I did have a discount code. So for me, I think I paid 105. So I did save some money on this pen by purchasing it. But I definitely will say that the nib is really cool and I really, really like it. So comparing the two nibs with each other, now you can see the scroll work and everything is about the same as far as the nibs go. You've got your two-tone nib on the left, which is your steel flex, and then you've got your 14 karat gold flex on the right. Everything else looks about the same. Now you'll notice a big difference obviously in the tipping material. And so that's going to be one difference. Now flipping them over, you've basically got the same exact a feed as you do on both pins. Now I do notice this one on the right seems a little bit seems to have a larger channel. When you take the nib and feed off of this pin versus the one on the left, the channel is larger on this one. And at first I thought maybe that had something to do with the nib, but in actuality, and I could be wrong on saying this, when I originally bought the orange pen, I got it with just the standard nib, and I bought just a nib replacement. So I bought the flex nib separately. And one thing I will say is, I know Kevin offers the flex nibs with the flex feed as well that has that wider feed channel. And I think this pin here, I have just the standard ebonite feed. So that's one of the differences. This one came with the flex ebonite feed. So that's really, I'm not going to go into any more depth detail as far as the pins go. I'm going to do a writing sample next. If you guys want to know more about these two pins or just the Himalaya models in general, you can watch my previous video and learn more about these two as well as the ebonite one here. I'll be back in a moment, guys, for the writing sample, and I'm going to compare these two pins with each other. All right, guys, we are back. So we've got our orange one first. So this is with the two-tone steel nib. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put on here what the pin is. So this is the FPR Himalaya. And this is with the steel flex nib. So now I had to think there for a minute what I'd planned on doing next. So now we're going to write with this one, same thing right underneath it. Oh gosh, this is not a steel flex. Help if I was thinking about something else at the same time. 14 karat flex. Now, one thing you'll notice that this one definitely has a little bit wider line just on the normal writing strokes. This is with just very minimal pressure. You also notice that this the gold nib definitely has a wetter line in most cases. At least that's something that I notice. There is some letters here and there that you'll see that has a much, does not lay down quite as much ink. You know, that doesn't really bother me necessarily. And part of that is just kind of my upstrokes and my downstrokes and when I'm putting pressure. My A's, I don't put as much pressure as I do on some of my other letters. So just to kind of show you guys the differences. But there you'll see the difference in the two nibs so far. And this is just, again, normal writing. I'll do an additional writing sample and then we'll start looking at flexes. Now, both of these inks, so you've got, both these are Pilot inks, just FYI. So the blue one is Iroshizuku. This is Konpeki. And my orange one is Fuyugaki. I think, there we go. All right, so now we are going to do an additional writing sample to kind of see what it looks like. All right, so there it is with the still nib. And now we will do it with the 14 karat gold nib. There you go. So real quick, one thing that I definitely notice when between the two nibs, which is fairly common with anytime you use a still nib versus a gold nib. The still nib definitely gives back more feedback. It's not a toothy feedback or anything. It's kind of more like a what you would call maybe a pencil-y type feedback, whereas the gold nib is definitely much smoother. Which to me is not always the case when you use a gold nib versus a steel nib. I've used gold nibs that give way more feedback than I feel like they should, and I've used steel nibs that were, I wouldn't say buttery smooth, but were very smooth. So you'll notice there is, or hopefully you can see that there is some differences as far as the width of the line. Now it doesn't specify what line width the flex nibs are, but to me this is more of a fine line up here with the steel, and to me a little bit more of a medium fine on the gold nib. Now as far as wetness, we'll do still nib first. There's that one. So not extremely wet, but gets the job done. Now here is gold nib. About this, not extremely wet. I have noticed this one has a little bit more of a sweet spot, and I guarantee you if I go this direction, you're going to get a lot more. So upstrokes for this definitely are much finer and don't lay out as much ink. Downstrokes on this definitely lay down tons of ink, which can also add a little bit more to your characteristic as far as or your writing characteristics. I'm sorry. Now as far as flex, let's see how well I can do this real quick. So there is no pressure, just a slight amount of pressure. We'll kind of go up from there. And there you can see some line variation with the still nib. Now the gold nib, there is no pressure. And there you got some railroading. That was me. And there you see it. One of the biggest differences, and I mean anybody that's used a gold flex nib, this one gold nib, you're not having to push as hard. You're not pushing as much, and sometimes that can also be a bad thing because for instance, railroading here because I probably pushed it a little too quickly, too early. And sometimes because this is more resistant, you're going to be less likely to spring the nib versus on the gold one, it's not as resistant. You may try and push it a little bit too far. So it's always something to kind of watch for when you're using a gold nib versus a steel flex nib. Let me just kind of see there, and then again. And this one is, I mean, it's almost, I don't want to say effortless, but it definitely, especially once you get the ink flow going on this pen, it is very, very easy to get this pen to flex. It's actually really fun to get it to flex. And you can see how this thing just lays down ink like nobody's business. And then again, do the steel one more time. Oh, well, hope I don't get that blue, mixing the blue ink. But, you'll notice, and, I don't know how well you can notice this as I'm doing it, but I really have to push down a lot more with this steel nib. You can definitely feel it. So again, this pen here retails for $29 regular price. So with the Flex upgrade or the Flex nib, you would be looking at a $32 price point. With this pen here, with the 14 karat gold nib, you would be looking at a $128 price point. So definitely a much, or a big jump in price. And rightfully so, because you're getting a 14 karat gold nib. Now, here's the question. Is this pen with the nib, or just, the nib in general, is it worth the price that you're paying to get this nib versus paying $32 for this nib? And for me, that question is kind of hard to answer that question, because I think it depends upon the person. And I think that can be kind of subjective, and you could argue both points. I think it depends upon what you're willing to spend and maybe what you have to spend. So for me, I really, really enjoy this gold nib, and it's enjoyable nib to write with. It's fun to play with. If you are someone that enjoys, or you do a lot of calligraphy writing, you do a lot of Spencerian type writing, or you just really want to start out with a flex type nib, this could be a good option for you. Now, if you're someone that is more on a budget and, $120 is just out of the question for a pen, go with this one. You will not be disappointed. In my opinion, you won't be disappointed with either pen. It is just dependent upon what you want to spend. Now, the other part, and I'm going to throw this in there, not to drive people crazy, and I haven't done a review on this pen yet, and I will at some point. This right here is a Pilot Custom 74 with a soft fine nib. Now, you can also get them in soft medium. They do have other Pilot pens that you can get in the Falcon, but the soft fine nib, for instance, this pen gives you some really cool line variation, and you've got a 14 karat gold nib in there. So, and the reason why I'm showing you this pen is while it's not an extremely striking pen, it's just black with gold trim. I got this pen for less than $80. So this is a gold nib, soft fine nib. You get some really interesting line variation. You're not going to get what you get completely with this. This pen definitely flexes more. But my point of what I'm saying is you do have other options out there that may be more economical as far as a 14 karat gold flex. With that being said, for me, this pen is worth what I paid for it. Now, I didn't pay the full $128. I paid $105. But would I pay the $128? Yes. Do I enjoy both pens? Yes. But I think I wanted to offer up kind of that information to you to kind of let you know that if you're either getting started out in fountain pens and you're really interested in flex and things, going with a steel flex nib to start off with would be a really good option. And then maybe upgrading to a gold flex nib at some point. If you're someone that enjoys vintage flex, while this is not a vintage flex nib, I enjoy the fact, to me, it flexes really well. Does not take a lot of effort to flex this nib. And I think Kevin, whoever he's got making these nibs, I'm assuming it's probably the same person. The nib works very well and it performs good. And you know that you're going to get a good product from him. And if for some reason it doesn't work, he's going to help you out and make sure that you get a pen and a nib that does work. So that pretty much concludes my review, guys. This was, again, kind of the surprise pen. I saw the nibs. I really, I love flex nibs. I love playing around with them and just doing different types of flex writing. And when I saw this one, I could not pass it up, and I had to get it. So I enjoy it very, very much. Maybe other people won't quite as much. Maybe other people won't want to spend that much money. But for me, it was a good buy, and I enjoy it. So guys, please give me a thumbs up. Comment down below. Tell me what you think. If you've already got this pen and you've tried it out, tell us what you think about it. If you guys like my pen videos, please subscribe. Other than that, guys, I will see you guys in a few days with another pen video. Have a wonderful weekend.